Testing, 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 all right. Well, good almost afternoon. My name is Lisa Perry, and I am, one of my side projects is writing and speaking on better living through communication, minimalism, and debt reduction. And I want to talk to you today about the student loan debt crisis, which you have heard about. Right, that's one of the big selling points for Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders was free college tuition because tuition is just too damn high. And it is, but that's a whole nother topic. Law students really face this problem almost more than any other group of people do, because we were, especially recently, we were led to believe that we would be graduating and getting these cushy jobs at $160,000 a year. So whatever you got for a student loan was an investment in a better future. And of course, 2008, that all went crashing down, and there was Bloody Friday and Bloody Thursday and Bloody Monday and Bloody every day when big firms were cutting people, staff, attorneys, everybody. And right now, according to the U.S. News and World Report, the average student loan debt for law school graduates is $111,000. And there are 10 schools where the average debt is over $156,000. That is just what people borrow, but of course it's not what they end up paying back because of interest and recapitalization of the interest onto the principal, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, what this does is it really puts these new students in this horrible stress cycle where they start off paying just the principal on their student loans and often on their credit cards. They're paying the minimum. They have a high debt-to-income ratio. They have a lower credit score. They end up being charged a higher interest rate on credit cards that they have or car loans they get, or they pay more for auto insurance. Everything kind of is more expensive when you have a bad credit score, which means they can only pay the principal or the minimum, and this cycle just continues until they can get out of it. And I want to tell you a little bit about my story. In 2009, I had $120,000 in student loan debt from graduate school for my PhD program. It was at a 7.25% interest, which is higher than it is now. And my monthly payment was $858. I also had $20,000 in credit card debt. I was living in the second most expensive place in the country to live, in the Bay Area. And I was working at doing contract work as a document review attorney. And I'm like, I'm never going to get out of this situation unless I do something about it, right? Unless I do what Stanley talks about, which is change. I had to make some change. January of 2015, 6 years later, 0 student loan debt, 0 credit card debt, and I carry 0 balance month to month. So how did I do that? That is what I'm going to teach you guys today, are some of these tips and tricks for paying off student loan debt in particular that you can pass on to people you know who are in this situation, and it can apply to any sort of debt situation that people are in. And it's really, really simple, just like losing weight. Increase your income, decrease your spending, and take care of your assets. Those are the 3 steps. And like Gretchen Rubin, who is a former attorney, talks about, you only can manage what you measure. And so a lot of this is going to be talking about measuring where you're at and where you want to be. First, increase your income. Law school graduates, attorneys, we are often pretty proud of what we've done, and we don't want to demean ourselves by doing side jobs or taking things that we think are less than what we should be doing. I'm going to say, get rid of your pride. If you need to get out of debt and you need to make your payments, do what you need to do to get that done. Go with the skill set you have and make sure to keep focused on your goal, because sometimes it can be really exhausting. So what I did was I took this job as doing document review, which was low status. I mean, we are treated in some firms worse than paralegals. Or janitorial staff. We are interchangeable cogs in a wheel, and that's something I understand. But it's high reward. In California, overtime laws are great there, so I was able to make $40 an hour plus overtime plus double time, which added up really quickly. I worked those overtime hours. And I knew attorneys who didn't. They said, well, I'm kind of, I think I want to go to the beach today. And those are the ones who missed out on those potential hours. And when projects end, you can't make those up. I also taught part-time. I became part of the community college district in California, and I would teach evenings to get that additional money. I would also pick up side gigs. So Stanford has medical research. I wouldn't volunteer, but I'd say, go ahead, do an MRI on my brain for $400, right? Absolutely sign me up. And so I would look for things on Craigslist that I could do to bring in additional money. Cut your spending. You have to know where you're at to know where you need to be. So find out what you're spending now, set your budget, and do it like we say the government should do, which is start from zero. Everything has to be justified rather than cutting, because it's easier when you start from zero. And when you set your budget, make it simple. We sometimes overcomplicate budget, and we're like, well, how much did I'm going to split my red wine versus my white wine, and I'm going to split, shopping at Whole Foods versus Target. Don't. Just fixed and variable expenses to make it simple. Third, join the sharing economy. So get a roommate. Share the place that you're living. Go to libraries instead of spending money on Netflix. Find ways to cut down on your expenses and find those group or public sector places that will give you those same things. Snowball your payments. So use those calculators to pay down the highest interest debt first. And the advanced level, this is what I did, is pay that debt down to the point where you start to feel a little bit sick because you wonder if you're going to be able to pay the rest of your bills, because that's a great motivator to work more and to save more. So what I did was exactly this. I tracked my spending with Excel, just got a spreadsheet open. I created an account with mint.com, which is free, and you can input your banking data so you can see exactly where your money goes. I shared an apartment the whole time I was in the Bay Area, used the libraries, kept my same car. I would commute by bike. So I was doing all these things to cut down my expenses. I paid my highest interest debt first. Once that was paid off, I took that money that I was paying and applied it to the next highest interest rate debt. And I put all of my money to living expenses and debt. And this can be kind of scary because I did not have an emergency fund. I was not saving any money. I was not putting any money towards retirement other than Social Security. But I was able to reduce my debt. And for me, that worked out because I could not get a 7% return on investment by going into the market at that time. In 2008, there's no way I was going to get a 7% return. I was getting a 7% return by paying down my debt. And finally, care for your assets. And those assets are not the physical things that you have. Those are the relationships you have and yourself. So take care of other people who rely on you or who are important to you. Don't just cut off all of your social connections and your friendships. Make sure that you are taking care of yourself. This basic things like get exercise, right? Do yoga, which is great for relaxation, connecting with yourself, breathing, eat healthy, and maintain or develop social connections. Finally, know yourself and your own motivators, because there were plenty of times when I got so tired of paying money to student loan debt, and I thought maybe I should just do an income-based repayment or something, and I turned it into a game. It was how much can I put in this month? How quickly can I get this thing paid off? I did all of these things, and let me tell you, now living debt-free is great, because I can take whatever job I want. If I want to do public service, I can do that because I have very little in expenses and I have no debt that I have to pay for. So I ended up paying $190,000 in 6 years with student loan debt, credit card debt, car, interest rate, everything else. On average, that was about $31,000 a year. If I would have kept paying the minimum for 26 years, that would have cost me $153,000 in interest alone. So I saved an incredible amount of money by escalating my student loan payments. And so it's an easy thing to do. It's not always physically easy, but the steps are simple. Increase income, decrease debt, and take care of your assets. That's all you need to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. All right, so let's give feedback to Lisa.